evening, everybody. Welcome to the June 21st, 2021 meeting of the Romeo Village Council. I'd like to call this meeting to order. It is 7 o'clock. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Roll call, please. Clerk Trapp.
Bartholomew.
Here.
Edwards.
Here.
Fowler. Hart.
Here.
Parker.
Here.
Poznansky.
Here.
President Malzahn.
Here.
We have 6 present.
In your packet, we have the consent agenda. It includes minutes from the regular meeting of May 17th, closed session for May 17th, which was on your table when you arrived on the green sheet, the special meeting minutes from May 24th, meeting minutes from the budget workshop of June 7th. Also included are your council bills this month for June. The check register report should show $221,223.71, and their vendor bills showing $15,244.80.
Should the approval of the agenda be in there? Is that included in the consent, or is that just, it's not on here anywhere, and I don't remember if we grouped it in with that.
We'll just add that after the consent agenda then.
Okay.
We can make that 3B.
Correction to the June 7th. Pull that out, and then I do have questions about the registry.
Okay?
And
So
the May
we'll-
17th also.
May 17th, the regular or the closed session?
Regular?
Okay. Pull up the closed session
Ooh.
and the budget workshop. Okay, so we're pulling out the budget workshop meeting, the meeting minutes from May 17th, and the council bills. Any other issues? Otherwise, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda, removing those 3 items.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so let's take start with the budget workshop meeting of May 24th. That's on the top of my pile. What adjustments did you need, Justin?
I don't think no, not that one.
I think that was yours.
I had
Oh,
the
it wasn't?
8th, the 7th, the June, not May 24th.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood you. Okay,
No, mine was the regular.
so that's the, let's amend that motion, right?
It's minor, just the date is incorrect. It's supposed to be the 7th, right, not the 8th?
The meeting minutes Cindy drafted on the 8th. It was for the meeting of June 7th.
The first line
All
calls
right.
out June 7th.
Explanation
Yeah,
understood.
it's
Thank
just
you.
when she types them.
Yeah, I thought that was the meeting date. Okay.
No.
Perfect.
Okay.
That was
So
it.
we don't need to revise that?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
Okay. And there were no corrections then to the budget workshop meeting of the 24th? That was my misunderstanding? Okay, so that's good. The May 17th?
Similar question to what I just had. I don't see, it's in the consent agenda to approve agenda, but then there's no specific motion. Is it approved because we didn't pull it out? Or didn't we add stuff, though? I thought we did. Because I added an item, so that motion should have been on there. On the page, second to the last, it even says budget dates added item. So there should be a motion somewhere under the consent portion.
Do you have that noted, Catherine, or do you have any other questions regarding that?
Or just,
I got a lot of notes.
Okay.
Wasn't that,
Nope, I apologize that my edits did not make it to this draft, because I do have it in my notes, and I know we talked about that, so I will fix that.
Okay.
Would you guys need to have me re-email it to you?
No, you put it in there.
Can we
Yep,
just
that was
approve it
mine.
at the next meeting?
Pardon me?
Do we have to approve it this month, or can we just approve it at the next meeting after we get the final copy?
As long
I think
as
you
you
just
give
normally
me
add it in there, and then we're going to make a motion to approve it with the amendments.
with the instructions. Okay.
Did you have a correction regarding these minutes as well with the?
I just had a question, because there was a conflict in the minutes. It talked about on page 4, it refers to 65%, I think, as the minimum in the ordinance. It says 60 in the minutes. In the ordinance, the way that the revised draft is, says 65, so there's a conflict there. I don't recall whether it was 60 was correct or 65. There's a conflict between the two.
Talk about the percentages, you know. It started at 70, I think it was 65.
Right, 65 is my
I
recollection
had
as
60
well.
in my
I
notes.
thought you changed it to
Oh,
60.
60 also.
You changed it to 60 day of.
I guess that would be my guess. So then the ordinance has 65, that should be changed to 60.
Okay,
All right.
we can make that
So the
amendment.
minutes
are
So
fine.
the minutes are fine, we'll just make
Okay.
that amendment to the ordinance if we move forward with that.
Okay.
Okay, so I have a motion on the floor to approve the minutes from May 17th with Megan's amendment. Your support?
No support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And the council bills?
So a couple of questions. Just the one thing popped, yard services. What is that? What do we use them for?
That's for the cemetery. They are a contractor that does our foundation orders.
Okay. They just do the foundations? They're not,
At this time, yes.
okay, cool. That was it.
Motion to approve the bills?
Support?
Roll call, please.
Bartholomew?
Yes.
Edwards?
Yes.
Fowler?
Yeah.
Hart?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Poznanski?
Yes.
President Melzan?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
We also pulled out the approval of the agenda as 3B. I would like to request that we move unfinished business, the restated and amended marijuana ordinance, after the closed session, because there's some specific information that would probably pertain to whatever decision we move that forward. So if we could move number 9 down below number 11. Were there any other additions or deletions to the agenda?
I did want to put something in. I had emailed the clerk early in the month and asked for ordinance violation notification to be put on. I don't know if it got missed, but I would like to add that in.
That's under new.
Under new.
I never heard back if you had supporting documentation.
You didn't ask.
Okay, but it's part of the,
I don't have any. I'd like to discuss it.
okay.
Okay, so we're going to add ordinance notification discussion as item I. Any other adjustments? I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with those 2 corrections.
Support?
Support by Edwards. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Do we have anybody here for our special presentation?
Real quick, do we have to approve the other agendas and the closed? I think we just did the May 17th.
We only pulled out the ones that we had questions, and the rest of them were included in the consent agenda, the first motion that we approved.
Okay,
So,
just clarify.
should be good.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Anybody here from Macomb Pride?
I don't know if
None?
it's lost
We will skip over that. Under correspondence, we have no correspondence. At this time, public comment. Is there anybody present who wishes to address this board under public comment? Going once, going twice. Move on to officers' reports. My president's report for June 21st. I wanted to thank the Chamber of Commerce for hosting its annual State of the Community event. It was held this past Monday. This last week, Monday. The event was headlined by Congresswoman Lisa McClain, who did an excellent job in updating everyone on some of the initiatives she has undertaken, as well as fielding questions from the audience. Supervisors Previti and Philbrook, along with myself, were also invited to attend to provide an update on the happenings in our local municipalities. We also answered a few questions that were posed from Magistrate Jennifer Andary, who was the MC for the event. The three main projects that I spoke on were the Romeo Village Park, the pedestrian crosswalks, and the ongoing residential sidewalk rehab. For full coverage of that event, I ask you to please tune in to the Mint TV or visit their Roku channel. It was a lovely, well-attended event. I continue to hold regular office hours to meet with our property and business owners to address any of their concerns. If you have a concern, a compliment, or complaint that you need assistance with, please call my office at 586-752-3565. I'm available at extension 3. Many, many residents have come either into the office or called me with concerns over our trees and their need for either removal or maintenance care. I am working with our DPW and private contractors to prioritize the work according to the potential hazards that the individual's trees pose. I've asked the tree board for some assistance in developing a long-term management plan. And together, we will be working on that goal in the upcoming months. Other notable meetings that I attended last month include the following. I met with both labor unions and the non-union employees regarding their new contracts. Met with Bruce Township officials regarding their current sewer use contract and Romeo's approvals for the permitting current development projects in their Bruce Township corridor, including Northern Grove Townhomes and the Bruce Tech Park. I met with individuals from Ford Motor Company regarding the pending plant closure. Also met with the MEDC, which looked at redevelopment opportunities for that 500-acre site. Met with leaders from Washington Township regarding the Great Lakes Water Interconnect installation proposal between our two communities. That project is for the installation of Washington Township water lines from 32 Mile Road to 30 Mile Road near Powell Road. The interconnect will serve as an emergency service option from or to Washington, depending on the need as it arises. The ransomware team and I have been trying to obtain the second decryption key for the data from the DPW hard drive. I notified the team on Friday after a conference call between legal counsel and myself that Romeo will no longer negotiate for that key. Mark and I agree that the potential problems for continuing the negotiation outweighs the potential for a successful outcome. The forensic portion of the team continues to analyze the equipment that we shipped to them 2 weeks ago, and I hope to have their final report soon. And I believe most of the other agenda items for tonight's meeting cover everything else I've been working on for the past few weeks. Clerk Drapp?
Okay, very happy to report that our annual Memorial Day Parade was a huge success this year. Happy to be back. Special thank you to Diane Smiles and Sandra Brooks of the Cemetery Board, along with several serve students from the high school for placing flags on veterans' graves. Also a special thank you to Len Harding and his family and the Boy Scout troop he's part of for also helping placing flags on our veterans' graves. Macomb County Community Action has asked each community to spread the word about the Limited Housing Rehabilitation Program. This program provides income-eligible homeowners with free assistance for home repairs, including leaking roofs, inoperable heating systems, water heaters, and accessibility home modifications. I do have flyers if anybody is interested. The second week of June, I was at the Michigan Association for Municipal Clerks Institute. The schedule of classes covered such topics as how municipalities handled the recent pandemic, maintaining archives, to ethic policies and procedures, current and upcoming legislation for such items as the marijuana laws. Also got to spend some time with Susan Kraft of Bruce Township, their new clerk, and the new deputy from Washington Township, Karen. I'm sorry, I forgot your last name. This past Friday, I had the honor of attending a tree dedication ceremony to honor Washington Township trustee, the late Washington Township trustee, Peggy DeVos. A bench will also be placed by the tree in her honor. That is all I have.
Thank you. Treasurer Maddox?
All the payments back from the ransomware have been backdated and entered into the cash receipt system. I think there's just 2 more that Cindy needs to receipt into, and we've been entering payments current. All the special assessments have been added to the tax. That includes sidewalk, and that includes the outstanding delinquent water. Just going forward, when we work on the sidewalk, we really need to have a better control of the process with the sidewalk processing, because we've had to actually go back sometime back to November, and we just need to have a better understanding what that process is going to be, so it's more easily to be managed in the Treasurer Department. I'm pretty much all set for the tax roll to be sent out on July 1st. And at this current time, I just want to thank the residents, and I look forward to serving and finishing my term. So are there any questions from the board? Okay, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Trustees? Zach, anything to report?
Sure, I've been asked by a number of residents regarding the Village Park and the $70,000. Was that check made out to the Mid-TV, or was it made out to the Village of Romeo?
I believe it was made out to the 501c3 that collected it, but I haven't seen that check, so I don't know for sure who it was made out to.
Okay, so all the information that you provided is, you haven't seen the check? Has it come through our system at all?
No, I've
Treasurer?
No.
I've not seen it.
Just questions out there in the streets, wondering where the money came from.
Well, it came from Ford Motor Company. They needed a 501c3 for which to facilitate the transaction through. That's why it went to the Mid-TV.
So the
as-
check
as
was
part
made
of
out to
theirs.
Mid-TV?
I believe so, but I physically haven't laid eyes on it, so I can't confirm that, but that's my understanding, that it was made out to the Mid-TV, deposited in the separate, the separate account.
So you helped solicit this check to get it for our Village Park?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Thank you.
Was that it?
I can answer the questions.
Okay. Justin, anything to report?
I just follow up on what Zach, so we had $70,000 come in that was facilitated by us, by you, and it went to the Met, and we have no idea where that is or what's happening.
Well, I know that the Mid-TV set up an account to deposit that money into, again, because the village is not a 501c3, and for the community program that Ford utilizes to fund these events, it requires a 501c3.
So it came through the Ford Foundation or the
Yes.
Ford Company?
I believe the Ford Foundation.
So it went through a 503. So in the past, when this has happened, that has went through the 503 and then has pretty much immediately come back to the village. So I don't know if it's just held up there, or we should have some understanding of where that money's coming from. If that's something we facilitated as the board or the president, we should have an understanding, right?
I believe that money is set into a separate account at the Mid-TV for those funds. It's an escrow account, just like when you purchase a house. So
Well, those funds
the funds
are
are
gonna need to be
set up
tracked.
there.
Yeah.
So if the invoices for that project are coming through the village, then the money would come through the village coffers. But if it's being paid through a friend of the committee, then that account would be tied in to,
So it's
to the transfer of
a
those.
separate entity then from the Met?
They have a charitable arm to the Mid-TV for their 501c3.
So the Friends of the Village Park sounds like something that was recently or newly created then?
Correct.
Okay. So when that then was facilitated by the Met or through a different part of the Met?
Ruth and I are working together to,
I'm just trying to understand, because
Right.
it just seems, in all honesty, seems fishy that we got money going into one of our contractors, and we have no plan, we didn't hear anything about it prior, there's been nothing talked about, we have
You
no
even asked
board.
us to give money from the budget to this,
Yeah,
and I'm going to assume that you had already been in talks. Like, why would you ask us for money for a village park if you were doing this?
I asked you to budget money for the village park for those projects as a cost share for that project. The budget is not yet been developed. We know that we will need more funding. We have some initial drawings and some plans, so we're going to need some more funds raised, depending on the scope of what we want to do. So yes, I asked you to budget money for that project as a cost share.
At what point, though, were the plans going to be presented, creating a budget? I mean, it sounds like you guys are just moving forward with a project that this board or the planning or no one. It was dropped on us last month that we've got all this going on. It sounds like quite a bit of money just to be, hey, we're putting this there.
Right, it's a very exciting project, and we are working on that, friends. We're asking for people who want to serve on that committee. We're developing that, working with some contractors to put together some site plans, and also working to develop some community engagement events. I believe we're meeting with Claire on Wednesday to talk about presenting that in conjunction with the concerts in the park, so that hopefully we can have some drawings and some data opportunities to reach out to the people who are attending that to get their feedback. Those sorts of opportunities before we actually develop a finalized drawing, because we want to know what people want to see in there. So that's where that is.
So out of all the drawings and everything that's coming out of the village budget, was that coming out of that $70,000?
It would be coming out of the budget for that park, right?
So the 65,000 that you have allotted for, it's coming out of that budget, that you're putting into our budget.
75.
I'm not sure where you get the
I
65,000.
think it was originally 50 and went up to 75. Originally was park improvements, and then it was changed to village grounds or something, up to 75. We got 70 that was donated from Ford, and I think we're asking DDA to
No, we
pitch in.
haven't asked the
2 bills.
DDA for any funding for that.
I thought I saw it on one of the,
Don't they tax
On
on
the
2
budget.
bills to the business district? I think I've seen that in there.
so.
I'm
Just,
sorry,
I guess
what
just a
did you
little bit
say,
more
Zach?
understanding before you get dropped 70,000 donation already sounds like it's spoken for.
Nope, there's actually another $40,000 that's already been donated, and I mentioned it at the State of the Community. There's some partnerships from some other of our business entities that are also wishing to donate, and we're just looking to facilitate their involvement and what that looks like in their budget. So they're going back to their owners, seeing what they have in their community assets that they might be willing to donate.
So I guess just before we go to businesses or Ford or whoever else is donating and say, hey, we want money for the park, you should probably involve the boards, especially the planning, because I think any improvement to an asset of the village has to go through planning. So before we just ask for a ton of money, you want to make sure that everyone's on board with that.
No, another thing would be said is, you have to know that you have a budget before you can plan.
Well, it just got dropped in everybody's lap that night.
I mean, a quick, hey, we're looking at maybe starting the committee.
Right. When you
Improvements
see
to
it
the
dropped
park.
in your lap, so what I did was I made an announcement of the project. I said, hey, this is a good thing. We have money. We have a community partner that's willing to invest locally so that our residents benefit from a tax-free improvement in our community.
And I don't
This is
think
a good
anyone's
thing,
arguing
and I'm working on that, and we're working
But where
through
the
the
money's
events of the community.
facilitated to or for,
Right.
Especially when you're asking this board to chip in.
Did not ask the board to chip
You're
in.
asking for us in the budget, aren't you?
I asked for
$75,000?
community improvements, not necessarily for the park.
But I guess what he's saying is just inform us.
I did inform you. That's exactly what I
Keep
did,
everything
inform
close
you
to the
last
chest.
week,
after the
or
fact.
last
And then
month.
After the fact.
I mean, it'd been great.
Why would I tell you up front that I was going to ask Ford Motor Company and they said no?
No, that's your whole administration.
The beauty
Keep
is that I
everything
took it upon
yourself.
myself to
And
ask
while
Ford
it's
Motor
going down.
Company to partner with us.
Yeah, and it
That's-
sounds like
that's
this has been in the
doing-
works for
to
some
expedite, right.
time.
She's
You know,
doing her job as a president by reaching out to
check
Ford.
30?
Her
At
job
what
as
point
president.
do you include
Job
the
as
board or the
president.
residents on what's going
At
on?
last month's meeting, that's at what
After the
point?
fact.
That's at what point, yeah. That we have a financial commitment from a partner, we're looking for additional financial commitments, and we're going to move this project forward to the best of our ability. That's what
That's just
point.
doing her job.
She's doing her job and her job. She's doing everybody's job. Which, if you're going to be the president, be the clerk, be the clerk.
I don't know what that has to do with anything. So, do you have any other
No.
trustee comments?
Nope.
Trustee Edward?
Although those comments are relative and everything, I don't think there was exactly a report. I think that should have been done as an agenda item and not under reports.
Well, my
I
source
guess
was.
the other thing I got.
If you look at what the reports
Under
are
a
for,
report.
it would be things of interest to the community.
Of feedback from the community.
So that would be of
That's-
interest to the
That's what it
community.
says.
I would urge you to please reread your rules of engagement, your rules of procedure, which says that it's for accounting of things that you have been working on as a trustee outside of this board.
It also
Well, the
says that
president
the
stops
clerk's
talking
supposed
to
to
me
write
about
the
what's
agenda,
going on.
that
I
doesn't.
would agree with Matt
We
on
have to
that.
bring it in.
So I
Do you have a
guess they're
report, Megan?
wishy-washy.
Do you have a report, anything to add? Trustee Bartholomew?
So we'll take care of sidewalk now. I met with the contractor. We really want to get the project of from the Malberg Funeral Home to the traffic light. I met with Jeff Rapp, the contractor, and his idea coincided with the plans that you showed me that were drawn up. And it's just a matter of getting a hold of the church. There's no one there a lot of the times, but Mr. Malberg did give me a couple numbers of people who are involved in the church that I will be reaching out to so that we can get basically their permission to do this.
Okay. There are 2 alternate drawings that HRC developed in that project. One makes it a setback of 66 feet. A part of that project, part of that property, really only has a 33-foot setback, but it's a safer route and it's a straight shot up from Malberg's if we follow the 66-foot rule, which ties into where Copperwood Commons comes across that driveway. So that's why we have 2 alternates. It would require approval by the church. So I asked Nathan to reach out to them so that we can move that project forward and hopefully get the sidewalk installed before school starts in August. We did also do an accounting of the sidewalk project. The bills that Sherry referenced were prepayments that some of the homeowners from 3 years ago prepaid for work to be done that for whatever reason wasn't done in the first 2 scopes. So we made sure that those were on the priority list to be done by Jeff Rapp. And we identified those that needed to be added on a tax, which were 3. There were 3 homeowners that haven't paid their share yet. Well, I shouldn't say that. There are a few others that have agreed that they're going to do a payment plan, so we didn't authorize those to be placed on tax. So the sidewalk is moving along, and Jeff is out there actively working on the Bailey, Dickinson, Dorsey area now, so. Good. I don't believe the Planning Commission had a meeting, so I'm assuming you have nothing to report on Planning Commission. Okay, so we took care of the sidewalk subcommittee. Anything further to add from the rental inspection subcommittee?
Just where we left it last time in discussion, the committee felt that we were going to, we got a few things.
Yeah, we
Go ahead, Zach.
put together these, as far as outlying communities that are around us, that are collecting rentals and that are not. And only the cities right now are doing the rental registration. Villages and townships are not.
I had a discussion with Mike Bomarito. He was in agreement that he doesn't really feel we need that ordinance in place. There's already currently ordinances in place to...
That's actually not what his discussion with me indicated.
Oh, that's directly what it was. I thought he was going to be here tonight.
No,
after I talked to him.
he had another commitment and a family problem that he's dealing with, so he and I spoke last week. I don't know if you've spoken to him since then, and he indicated that he had not met with you. He had a phone conversation with you, but he did not meet with the subcommittee, so he still thinks that we should do that. And
they told me
that those meetings should probably include myself, since I'm also a member of that team, so. But anything else?
You were a
member of the team.
How are you on the subcommittee? I thought it was just me and Zach.
No, as president, I would be on all those subcommittees.
Okay, so we'll make sure, we'll set up another meeting and get him nailed down then, because he made it sound like we didn't need it. Didn't feel that we did with the size, and the amount of rentals we have. He didn't feel that it was necessary, because there's already ordinance in place so that he can go after blight or dangerous structures.
Right. Do we know how many non-owner occupant buildings we have in the village?
No, I don't know the total right now.
Is that good to know?
As I indicated to you on this sheet here.
The thing that I had thought...
Even Washington Township doesn't even have a rental registration.
Because you had mentioned, as far as the ordinance that we have now, I don't know how many we have, and maybe if we don't have a lot, then maybe it's not as important. But we had the situation that was on Chandler that for 10 years was rented. We made them move cars, take care of some things on the outside, but the inside was dangerous. I remember when I think it's the Parker Building on Main Street, was renovated, and there was a large number of tenants that were living up there on the second floor. They had made improv wall units and things to divide it up, and that was rented to a bunch of people. The Lions tore down a house that was on Hart Street that was set up for rental for 3 people that had been renting it recently, and before it was demolished. And I went through there, and I'm like, how can anybody be living in these conditions? So we have to do something. I think I have some rental properties where it happens to be down in Warren and Hazel Park, and sometimes it's a pain, but as a property owner, I know that it kind of helps take care of those situations. So it's, you know, again, if we don't have a lot of them in our village, then maybe it's not as much, but there has to be some way that we can take care of those situations, because again, what even brought this up was Chandler Street. You know, I think there were holes in the floor, people could have fallen.
Yeah, and I believe there are ordinances in place
But you can't.
for, just not rental, for any structure in the
But you don't,
village.
if you have it set up where you can do an inspection, that's how you can look inside and see what's going on. So I'm not saying we should or shouldn't do it, but that's, you know, what the concern is.
It's just like this weekend, one of the renters that lived down next to me contacted the owner of the property. He had all his people out there taking care of it. As long as they're in touch with whomever owns that property, then they can take care of the situation. And it doesn't need to be a rental registration involved.
And Bob, I think that like the Chandler House, I think that if there's stuff that Mike Pomerino can see from the street or from that catwalk on the house, or that's causing it to cave in here or there, I think that's enough to allow him to go in at that point.
Okay.
I think.
And I'm not sure. I don't know, but obviously some people were living in some pretty deplorable conditions, and sometimes that's the only place a person can afford to live. The landlord's not interested in fixing it unless they fix it themselves, and either they can't afford it or it's not their property. So that's the only concern that I would have, is safety.
Right. I had 3 residents that met with me in the last month that shared some concerns with neighbors that were rental units that were visible from the road. And some brought pictures and said this, you know, is unacceptable and something needs to be done about it. So again, I reported it to our enforcement officers, but had they not come forward, we wouldn't have known about it because it wasn't visible from the street. That's why this sort of program will help eliminate that, where there were, you know, missing steps, there were, you know, just a lot of safety hazards that would not be allowed. So we are able to address them with our code enforcement, but it's at this point, again, if it's noted. All right,
So
anything
we'll set up a meeting with Mike
Mm-hmm.
next couple of weeks. Zach, good?
Yep. The Bruce Sewers Capacity Subcommittee met. We had a meeting last week, I think. My dates all run together, but we did meet.
Before on Thursday.
Yes. We talked with Mike McDonald from HRC. I invited him there, and Mark Clark was there, and Al was there, just to gather some initial data. And so we're basically putting Mike McDonald in touch with Al to review the current infrastructure in that facility, to review the footprint. Can we expand it? Can we not expand it? What actually do we have? And then they'll report back to us, and then the sewer subcommittee can meet again. So some initial, nothing necessarily formal to report back. All right, we moved unfinished business down underneath number 11, so we can move on to new business.
We have number 9, ordinance violation.
We moved that down.
We added though.
That's in 10.
An ordinance violation thing.
That's in 10.
I thought it was under I for 10,
Under new
where
business.
under new business.
Got it.
Sorry. Okay, budget amendments. Fourth quarter of the year, fiscal year 2020, you have that report in from Tim. I believe Tim is not available. Is that correct, Catherine? Correct. He was not available. His cover letter indicates that there were 3 budget amendments and the reasons for those. The recognition of the local community stabilization overpayment, the removal of the projects from the public improvement fund, those were the ones that were not done in this fiscal year, and the reduction in water and sewer sales revenue. Any other questions regarding those budget amendments? I should note that we I asked the state of Michigan to remove us from the corrective action plan reporting. We started doing budget amendments on a quarterly basis based on the corrective action plan that we submitted for our OPEB liability. We have met the criteria, and we are no longer subject to that corrective action plan. So that's very good. But as best practices, I recommend that we still continue just to update this on a quarterly basis. As Tim indicated at the last budget meeting, he moves them up and down on a regular basis. Again, best practices for accounting methods, so. Do I have a motion to approve the budget amendments as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve the budget amendments as presented.
We have a motion by Edwards, we have support by Hart. Can you call a roll on that, please? Edwards?
Yes.
Hart?
Yes.
Bartholomew?
Yes.
Kuzminski?
Yes.
Fowler?
No.
Parker?
No.
President Milzon?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-2.
All right. And you have fiscal year 21-22 regular meeting dates. We typically adopt this at the beginning of our fiscal year. Please note that there are 2 Tuesday meetings that facilitates a move from President's Day and Martin Luther King holiday dates. So we move January and February meetings over one day. Any other discussion or a motion to approve the proposed meeting dates?
Motion to approve the meeting dates. Proposed.
Motion by Bartholomew.
Support.
We have support by Edwards. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item C, June 28th, public hearing date. We need to set a public hearing date for our budget, the fiscal year budget. And so we are asking that meeting be set for June 28th, which is Monday, this coming Monday at 7 o'clock.
That would be the only thing, we'll have the public hearing, and then we would vote afterwards.
Correct.
I'll make a motion that we accept the 28th as.
We have a motion by Hart,
Support.
support by Edwards. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
One.
Fowler is a no. 6-1. Okay. In your packet, you have the smart millage rates. This is annual housekeeping. The millage rates are set by SMART, and as a pass-through, we collect them, and you have in your packet what those rates are set to be. To be set at. Sorry, I didn't even say that right, did I? So, the community agrees to use $3,534 in municipal credits, and we pay that to STAR as the subcontractor.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Hart,
Support.
support by Edwards. Roll call, please.
Hart?
Yes.
Edwards?
Yes.
Kuzminski?
Yes.
Bartholomew?
Yes.
Fowler?
Yes.
President Milzon?
Yes?
Parker?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-2.
Okay. On your agenda, you have June Pride Month resolution. This was a resolution that was emailed to me and also requested on the agenda by Trustee Poznansky. I did update the one that you have in your packet to include the proper who, what, where, and when. It was edited from the blanket resolution that they did email out, because in the second to the last paragraph, in their version, it said it was imperative that young people in our community, and I think that that should say all people in our community, regardless, because it shouldn't matter if you're young, old, or somewhere in between, it should apply to all. So,
And I would like to just change it from June, the last paragraph, 2021, to just June, period. At this point, there's only a week left, so to declare it right now, if it passed. I was contacted by Macomb County Pride. A friend of mine volunteers there and said, hey, we're reaching out to all the communities. I reached out to all of the officials that I knew locally in Macomb, wondered if you would bring it up, and I said, we can ask. I did have somebody set up at presentations. I don't know where he's at. Chris was supposed to be here. I don't know if maybe his dates got mixed up or something like that, but he was going to come speak on Macomb County Pride's behalf. But if I might, this is the resolution that we are requesting, declaring June as LGBTQ Pride Month. Whereas the Village of Romeo cherishes the value and dignity of each person and appreciates the importance of equality and freedom. And whereas all are welcome in the Village of Romeo to live, work, play, and every family in any shape deserves a place to call home wherever they are safe, happy and supported by friends and neighbors. And whereas the Village of Romeo denounces prejudice and unfair discrimination based on age, gender identity, gender expression, race, color, religion, marital status, national origin, sexual orientation, or physical attributes as an affront to our fundamental principles. And whereas Pride Month began in June of 1969 on the one-year anniversary of the Stonewall Uprising in New York City after LGBTQ and allied friends rose up and fought against the constant police harassment and discriminatory laws that have since been declared unconstitutional. And whereas the Village of Romeo appreciates the cultural, civic, and economic contributions of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, plus community, which strengthen our social welfare, and whereas it is imperative that all people in our community, regardless of sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression, feel valued, safe, and empowered and supported by their peers and community leaders. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the members of the Village of Romeo Council declare the month of June as LGBTQ Pride Month in the Village of Romeo and urge residents to recognize the contributions made by members of the LGBTQ community to actively promote the principles of equality, liberty, and justice for all. So with that, I would like to make a motion that we pass this resolution declaring June Pride Month in the Village of Romeo.
Second.
I just have a question as far as, because I believe it's a national month and the state has adopted it. I would see if they hadn't, that they would have communities maybe do it to get to the point where the state and the national, but to do a proclamation for our village when it's nationwide and statewide, I'm not opposed to it, any kind of, inequality or, race, any of that is wrong. But I was just kind of wondering about that. That's all I just wanted to say.
Yeah, I assumed that whoever was going to give the presentation would sort of be able to speak to that, but obviously we didn't have that opportunity. So we have a motion on the floor by Poznanski, supported by Fowler. Is there any other discussion?
I don't know if it's a question for Mark or not. Again, not opposed to it. If we set a precedence and recognize any individual group, does that leave us open to have to then recognize any group that approaches us for?
No. Based on the terms of the resolution or the proclamation, it does not, I believe, pertain to a specific group. In other words, it doesn't declare it Macomb County Pride as an organization month. It just is declaring it, if I understand it correctly, as LGBTQ month, and you're allowed to do that. You don't have to. You can. The resolution's been made, it's been supported. You can vote for it, you can vote against it. It sets no precedent.
I think the second line describes Romeo very well, whereas all are welcome in the Village of Romeo to live, work, play, and every family in any shape deserves a place to call home where they are safe, happy, and supported by friends and neighbors. I think that's pretty much covers everyone, but so.
All right, well, we have a motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Next up on your agenda, you have the Road Tap Pedestrian Crossings Grant Bid Project. This is the next process, the next step in the process, getting the topographical survey, getting the sub-consultant and the design bid package so that we can send those out to contractors to have those bid documents received. Is there any other questions or discussion regarding this?
We got the money for the grant money there?
Yes.
That's a fixed amount?
190,000, correct.
And were you able to have HRC look at some storm sewers and digging this week?
That's a totally different
I
project.
know, but we had talked about
So,
that previously.
no, we're gonna, yes, I did. I did talk to Mike McDonald about that, and I can report on that later.
Okay, thank you.
So,
So the 51, is that included in what was budgeted?
right, that's part of actually, the original package that he presented to us back in September was for this portion to be $71,600. Although he does note in here that there will probably be some ongoing costs for whoever was going to monitor that project. But his bid right now is for $51,800.
Understandable. Okay. I didn't have stuff from September, so.
Yeah, that's why I grabbed it, because I wanted to check myself to see how that compared to what he originally proposed, so.
Awesome.
So, make a motion to approve that bid package, okay? Do a motion by Hart,
I'll second.
and support by Parker. Can you call the roll on that? Hart?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Fowler?
Yes.
Poznanski?
Yes.
Bartholomew?
Yes.
Edwards?
Yes.
President Malzahn?
Yes. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Again, we hope to get those bids out by early fall so that we can award the contract and then have the installation done next spring sometime, as weather permits. Item G, Rules of Procedure Amendment. I just put page 5 in your packet, and I was just suggesting and offering one amendment that says that if you want to request an agenda item be added, which is fine, that you must submit your agenda item to the clerk no later than the Tuesday before the meeting, and the documentation to be included in packets by end of business on Wednesday. And if we do not receive anything by Wednesday, we will not add that agenda item, because it does not allow for proper education and opportunity for everybody to understand what the point of discussion was. So,
That's confusing, though, because you have an agenda item on here without supporting documentation. So how could the council not be allowed to do that, but you could?
well, because mine is for discussion only, as is yours, which was why we allowed that thing to be added, right? If you had said, I want to have a discussion item only, I will not be providing any documentation, that's exactly how that would work. We have no idea what you referenced when you said you wanted to add the ordinance notification discussion. Were we supposed to grab some copies of an ordinance and put it in the packet for review? Were we supposed to have anybody in particular be knowledgeable on
Don't
what
worry,
you
if
wanted to
I
reference?
wanted your help, I would have let you know that I wanted your help.
I'm suggesting that we have the rules of procedure in place, that if you want an agenda item added, we're happy to do that. Notify the clerk by the Tuesday before. Provide us the documentation for packets that we assemble by Wednesday.
But if it's for discussion only, then,
You can say that it's for discussion only and you won't be providing.
because I mean, that's what we did here too. I mean, I don't see what you're trying to update. You just gave us the sheet with no change to it that you're asking to add.
The last paragraph, the third paragraph from the bottom, where it says submitted to the village clerk by 4:30 on Tuesday, or the request will be denied. That's the addition right
Why would we approve
there.
more rules on
Oh,
ourselves?
yeah.
This is our
No.
Board of Trustees meeting, and why would we put more rules, complicating rules on ourselves? That doesn't make any sense. I provided you the request ample amount of time, beginning of the month, not even the week up. Gave it a lot of time. I did
Again,
everything I was supposed to.
I
Why
don't
would I-
ask you to come unprepared to every extent possible when we draft the board packets and we give you as much supporting documentation as possible. We are just asking for the same courtesy in return, as much supporting documentation as possible. If there is none, and you tell us that, I understand that. Sometimes there may not be any, but if there is, for instance, when Justin asked to have salaries, him and I touched base. I said, what do you want to discuss? Because I wasn't sure where I was going with it. We talked about it. I said, if I give you this ordinance and that ordinance and this report that's coming in July, can we talk about it in July? And he agreed that that was fine. So. It's
I guess I just want to be clear that we can at least add things for discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not suggesting that you shouldn't be able to add any agenda items. I'm suggesting that open-ended, and you just ask for an item with no clarification, with no documentation, that we have the latitude, and you can still add it at the meeting if you want, just as Poznanski did.
Well, does it say in here then we can add for discussion only? I know that's what we're saying right now, but if it's not written.
That would be part of your submission, right? You would say, I want to add this agenda item for discussion only to our agenda for whatever month. I don't know that I need to put that in there, but if you're suggesting that we need to put that in there, then yes, we can clarify that.
Yeah, because the way it's written right now, it's saying if you don't have documentation, your request will be denied. So if there's no documentation, then you can simply deny it, even if it's for discussion only, unless that's in there. So it's kind of redundant then to add it, if it's how it's always been. We've always been able to add for discussion.
I'll make
if
a
there's-
motion to keep our rules of procedure as is without this correction.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? We have a motion by Poznanski. We have support by Parker. All in favor of leaving it as is?
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
Okay. So 4 ayes, 3 nays.
Yes.
Motion failed.
Motion
Yes.
failed.
Well, I'm sorry, the motion passes to leave it as is. Yes. Sorry, Zach. Okay, next up on your agenda, item H, Romeo elected offices. I put this as a discussion item on tonight.
That would have been nice to know before.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
I said that would have been nice to know beforehand, because again, just like you said to us, we got this packet with no information in there. And at times when I've reached out and said, hey, Clerk Trapp, was I supposed to get something on here? Then I get yelled at for that, oh, I'm sorry, did I not do your packet right? But you wanted me to let you know it was for discussion. Could you also then let us know when there's no information and it's just for discussion?
The agenda perhaps should have had an asterisk, which is what we have used in the past, to say that there was no packet information provided. Yes, so we typically do denote that there is an error in the agenda. Again, a simple email or a phone call, just to clarify, would have taken care of that. And snide comments at this point do not serve any purpose.
I tried, Christine, and then I get snide emails back to me. So phone calls and
Again.
emails aren't working.
A simple call to my office probably could have alerted you to that fact as well. If you're having difficulty in one avenue, please just reach out to me and I'll make sure that we can at least have a conversation, just like I did with Justin on his.
I'm
So,
trying to contact the person in charge
should be
of
the
that
clerk.
and the correct person.
so let's go back to the agenda item. You know, we've had some issues in the past, some ongoing issues. This is a difficult subject to really sort of talk about. The board has expressed their displeasure in the job performance from the clerk. There has been residents concerned, and I have had some concerns with the performance from the treasurer's office. And so the discussion needs to start now. We're coming up on an next election cycle. We talked about this years ago when we investigated a village manager coming up. We moved towards that, and then at the end, we didn't move forward with that. And I just think that if this board has some concerns over those offices, that this is a solution to remedy that situation. If we changed those two positions, which are non-voting members of this board, right? That those are hired positions, which is the case in almost all but 2 municipalities in the village in the state of Michigan that have those as elected positions. They are hired professional positions. The job description is set by the board. The control over the job performance is set by the board, and it eliminates the situation that we have right now, where there's instability in the office, there's animosity in the office, the culture in the office is disruptive, and it does no good to the village residents to offer that as a service.
Well, isn't that where you come in as the leader, as the CEO? Aren't you supposed to be helping with that? You're the ultimate one in charge.
Yep, we've
If
had
they
many,
were employees.
right, if they were employees, exactly. That's exactly
Even
where
in
it would
village
be.
law, that's how it's written. That's how it's supposed to be.
Right.
Brandon,
The problem with the elected is that no one is anybody else's boss. So there isn't any accountability.
That's not true. I mean, you're in charge.
The
You're in
people-
charge of that office.
The people
That is not
are-
correct.
And
But you're
she's supposed to be
accountable.
running that office also, day-to-day active, but you've moved into the office and taken over complete control of it. That printout that you gave us of that software showed that you were there every minute and she was nowhere to be found, so you were running that office. I mean, that's your house at this point. So every activity that goes on and goes wrong in there is you.
Well, I disagree with that, because how many times, Mr. Clark, have I asked you, what are my options here, right? How do I remedy this situation? Because we have ongoing issues and problems of which the elected officials, myself included, hands are tied. So,
But you did the same thing to us with this newest budget.
Yeah.
You were supposed to give us a budget weeks ago. We should have been actually approving it tonight. We should have multiple meetings, but yet you neglected to follow the ordinance and didn't give us the budget on time.
I disagree with that. We did provide you the budget, and we had several meetings to review the budget.
That's not what
Yes.
Tim
It's
said.
supposed to be transmitted by May 15th per the ordinance, and it was not.
Yep, due to the ransomware, we had some difficulties accessing the data, which I could fully explain to everybody, the limitations that we had moving forward.
Tim said there was a drafted budget in January.
Yes,
So
we
we all
began
had-
working on this in January. I began talking to
So there
him
was
in
something
January.
there. There was something there. You can't use the ransomware as an excuse.
We weren't talking about budget in January. We were talking about budget, we typically do April, May. That's why we met, I believe, in March, and we approved the meeting dates to have those discussions.
Catherine, I asked you once if you felt that you were qualified for this position, and you stated that yes, you were.
Okay.
Do you still feel that?
I'm not going to answer any of those questions without my attorney representative, please.
Because you, specifically, when I asked her that question, said that Trustee Poznanski might feel that she's not, but I disagree. So at that point in time, you agreed that Catherine was appropriate and that she was qualified. So at what time, President, did you notice that our clerk might not be up to snuff?
Probably about the same time that I noticed that our treasurer was also inadequate in the job performance of the duties.
What has the treasurer not done? What has our treasurer not managed to do that she is supposed to do?
Not showing up for work for a week.
Really?
We currently employ 3 people to do those job
I'm
duties.
sorry, Matt, how do you know that?
Because I was told by people in the office.
I don't know that. When
Sure,
was
did you not
that?
show up for a week?
Was that recently?
Yes.
Yeah.
It
And
was
how do you
Can
know
I-
this, but the
Can I
rest of us
approach
don't
the
know
board?
this?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And unfortunately, I have some very disturbing news to share with all of you. And it begins by day 1. But let me go back to the first question that you addressed, Matt, to me, is that I was out of the office for a week. Let me just make you aware, and all the board and the residents, that scheduled time was a scholarship that I had earned, which was scheduled.
Excuse me.
To that
was a
week.
village scholarship that my letter of hardship was awarded. The scholarship was awarded to the Treasury Office.
Correct.
Based on a letter that I submitted for financial hardship. It wasn't anything that you won.
Okay.
Just wanted to clarify that.
And the dates that are referenced, I was scheduled to be out of the office April 26th through April 29th.
I remember you telling us about this at a meeting that you.
Okay, yes, and I was looking forward to attending that seminar because that's when you have the ability to interact with other professional, experienced treasurers in that regard.
I thought you said you attended it.
I was scheduled to attend, okay? And so now it's important because I'm going to go back to the previous week. We had a board meeting on Monday, April 19th, and that is when we were made aware of the ransom attack from the previous week on April 13th. Okay. On Wednesday, approximately, let me just get my notes here, at approximately 10 to 3 on a Wednesday afternoon, Christine Malzahn entered the village office with her laptop in hand, frantically indicating that the wire needed to be executed and she did not have the ability to log into the bank, nor did she have her token, which a token is assigned, which I assigned when we moved from one bank to the other bank. And she requested the clerk, Catherine Trapp, to execute the wire. And at that current time, Catherine refused to process the transaction.
No.
And so
I did not
therefore,
refuse. Sherry, I asked
I
you
did not
to
refuse.
process the transaction, and I asked Catherine to approve it. That was the
Okay.
two-step
I got my
process that
token
was
out and I logged
required.
in.
well, I have the login dates of everything. And the reason why Christine wasn't able to execute it is because she had not logged into the bank since August 7th, 2019. And so therefore, she couldn't approve it because she couldn't locate her token. Well, in order to execute a wire, there's time restraints, and 3 o'clock is the time, the cutoff time. And so I have all supporting documentation, copies from the bank. And so basically, I was under the gun per se. She didn't have a physical gun pointed to me, but she had her laptop in my office demanding that I send this wire. Now, be mindful, I am not, or have I ever been made aware of any transactions with this ransomware that needed to take
Is
place.
that your job as treasurer, to do that?
To,
The
well,
wire?
yes.
Is your job?
It is my responsibility. However, I did not have all the facts pertaining to executing the wire. And so that was a discussion that you all had on Monday. The amount of the wire was to be sent was, can you just correct the amount of the wire that was supposed to be executed?
$12,500.
Okay, so $12,500 was to be executed. You showed me on your laptop that I was to send, which I did, and Catherine approved it, a wire for $14,462, which was executed. But because of the amount of stress that I was under, that impacted my medical condition that I have, and so it put my body in where I was physically unable to log in on Monday to the webinar at 12:30, which I had indicated my plan was initially to log in onto this training. And so therefore, because of my medical condition, I sought out my doctor, which I do have a copy of the letter from my doctor for my file. And I talked to the president of the association on Tuesday, and she felt that it was best that I just, not log in and keep my business, going. And so on Tuesday, I performed, as I did the rest of the week, my job function. I had interaction with Rebecca in accounts payable. I approved
No,
the
you did not.
paychecks. I came in, I signed the
We checks
paychecks
internally.
Tuesday
You were
night.
not there the entire week.
And I
You did
have
not report
access
in the
to the
entire week.
email. So I was going in to the bank, logging in, I was making phone calls, I was getting my emails, and I was responding to all of that. And so
But she
That-
just said you didn't do all that. They signed the
have-
checks.
I have them. I can provide, I didn't print them out because they had employees, but I can provide you verification that I physically signed the payroll checks for,
We can see that.
yeah, for that week. Yeah, because actually, the people that are employees, you would be able to see that I signed
So were you
them.
off for a week?
I was on a medical, I was
So you were
physically
sick?
ill. Yes, and I have a doctor's note
So
in
the
that
answer,
regard.
so the answer to my question was, were you off for a week? Or-
I was working from home and
I
performing
recall
my
the clerk
job
taking 2
function
weeks
to the
off in
best of
December
my
because she was
ability
not well.
with the medical condition that I
And then we're-
have.
Medical excuse.
Like,
We're not
I
arguing
want
with
to
you.
recircle back.
That's why,
Okay.
that's why we're.
My medical is none of your business, Trustee Poznanski.
I also
You're
had been in
making the clerk's
contact,
Everyone's business. So if you
I'm
don't
sorry,
want your
what?
business out there for the same situation, maybe we shouldn't be putting her on the spot. for
yeah,
medical
no,
leave.
I'm here to, and
I didn't-
my
I'm not
attorney
addressing
isn't here
right now,
wasn't
just so
here
that
to
you
be
know.
present
Whatever
because
she's
he was
volunteering,
quite,
She said that she was not there for a week.
The issue is, did you let
Never
anybody in the
brought up
office
that Catherine was
know
off for some
that you
time.
were
Okay, so
gone?
I
that
gave
is-
the office
so
prior
that's
notification
Tuesday.
that I was going to be gone. They knew what was happening and where I was. I gave them prior.
I also had been in contact with Cindy, and she was making, we were,
Gavel?
Wait.
yes, I have that in my file.
Excuse me. I want
And
to be
then-
clear about this. Sherry, please, call to order. You were scheduled to be at a conference. We made a work arrangement for Cindy and the other office staff members to perform your job duties in your absence. Is that not correct?
Okay, explain to
Is
me
that not
what
correct?
employees had to perform what job function when I was
Every
performing
single
it.
one of us met with the residents who walked in the door that week, Cindy, who processed every bit of mail, who opened up every envelope, who wrote the check number, who did your exact directives that you provided to her prior to your leaving. And we said, this is what Sherry needs, so that
Even
when
if we
Sherry comes
appointed
back
someone,
to
are they never
work,
going to be able to have a
she
sick day?
can perform those functions.
And Cindy did do that, and
Yes, she
I
did.
want to be
Yeah.
mindful
I
of
never said
that
you
did.
particular week. Again, we had no computer system. The only thing that the employees would have to do is, I'm the front person at the,
Did you report this, your absence, to anyone?
yes,
To whom would that be?
I reported it to board member.
Did you report it to any of
I
the
also
office
reached
peers?
out, and
But
Matt,
Megan,
I
you said
did,
you just found out about it tonight, that you didn't know about that.
That she was gone for a week.
You got doctor's issues for,
yeah.
that's.
She let me know that she missed a conference because she was sick.
Why didn't you
What
tell
you're
her?
saying is completely different, that she was gone for a week.
She was gone.
She was at a conference,
I came in
We
to the
did
office
not-
on
we did
Friday.
not know where she was
didn't
for
call
the
in,
entire
didn't say
week.
she was sick.
We weren't notified ahead of time.
Oh, wait, she's telling us she
No
just went into the
notification.
office on Friday when nobody's there, right?
But you just said
And
as an elected official, she doesn't need to.
Exactly.
To process and finish,
Exactly correct.
Right.
but I was
Did her job
not
get done?
physically able to go into the
It's done by other
office.
people.
Like
The point is,
The
agenda.
point is,
right,
they should
the-
both be appointed.
right. The point is that
So
the
it's
office needs some stability, and it needs consistency. We need competent, effective, capable, accountable people who are doing those jobs. Moving forward, we're up against an election cycle, whether these two ladies choose to run again in November, or if it's new people who want to run for these offices. I believe that it is in the best interest of this board to maintain control of exactly what you have an issue with. If you have an issue with poor job performance, just like Zach asked for Catherine's resignation, and she does not have to facilitate that, right? Somebody who is hired to do that job would be subject to discipline, to termination, to whatever that is. That's the consistency that the residents need.
In all of these years that the village has been
Asked
here,
her to resign. A little bit different here. We can put somebody in her spot to finish out her term.
Right. I did the same thing with the treasurer, out of compassion, not out of confrontation. If her health is at whatever it is, and she needed to consider a replacement, I asked her in a non-confrontational meeting, I had Chief Dan there with me as a witness, just to make sure that it wouldn't be portrayed as a confrontational meeting. I said, Sherry, let us make sure that moving forward, we have competent people who are doing that job. If we need to hire a deputy right now to help her so that if she has to go out on medical leave again, there is people in place to do that job duty. We do not, we should not, in all the wage studies that I'm looking at, right now we have 3 people. The residents are paying near $70,000 for the performance of the duties for the office of the treasurer.
Those are voted positions.
Right, but they have non-voting positions on this board, and that's different than the townships, where you have the clerks and the treasurers in the townships who are voting members. So we come together, we have a different level of accountability to the residents who week after week, they are month after month, they can look at our voting record and hold us accountable to that. That same latitude isn't afforded to those 2 positions. They're elected in there every 4 years, and no matter what happens, there's no way, there's no repercussions. This board.
Until currently, I don't think it's really been an issue.
Well, it was.
50+ years.
No, I disagree. If you look at the job performance of the previous treasurer and the way that the financials were left and the fact that we paid nearly $60,000 to fix the mistakes of the former treasurer, it's clear that if you do not have a competent professional doing that work, this is the scenario that you work against.
So are we specifically talking about the treasurer's position or both the clerk and the treasurer?
I'm suggesting that you look at both of those positions moving forward prior to the election
So you
cycle
feel our
of
current clerk,
2022.
I mean, is that what's made the difference? You don't feel that the current clerk is
I think
capable or
that there's some
qualified to do the position?
I'm sorry, say that one more time. 'Cause I don't
Capable or qualified to do the job?
I think that there's some inadequacies on multiple levels. Yes, I do.
What you were saying, before he injected what he said, you were saying that we need to look at this before the next voting election.
Right, this requires an ordinance change. So if we start having the discussion now, and we're going to look towards, moving it forward, we're looking towards salaries, we're looking towards the union negotiations, we're looking towards the future planning. We want a succession plan in place for not only our wastewater treatment, for our DPW, for our police department. We also should look at the succession plan for the village residents and how that office performs.
Is this another step to becoming a city, as you've been planning?
Sherry, could I pose to you the same question I asked the clerk? Do you feel that you have been qualified and you are competent in your position?
When I first took the opportunity to serve the residents, I came in earnestly. First day, let me go back to the first day. And I'm just going to be direct. I would, going back to the first day, say that you should, consider your action, how you took place. You escorted the prior administrator out the door less than 2 hours when you and Catherine marched into the office. And I said, Mike, what's the most important? And what did Mike yell back? We had this conversation. Backups daily. And the second thing was Benzinski, which is our financial auditors. And so for that decision that you made, you impacted the dynamics of the village, and you created the animosity. And from day one, you have put me and all your Facebook followers on a poll, and you've thrown everything, your slanderous accusations, you've threatened me, you've intimidated me, and how can anybody in the employees that work in the office even want to come and work in an environment when you two created that, opposed to all coming together and working together? Even if we would have kept the prior administrator on for a day, I'm sure that amount of information that he would have been able to have shared with us would have. But how could anybody be successful in a position and when you're constantly, kept uninformed, not made aware of what the facts are? and you get to a certain point in time, as I said to you, it's taken 3 years. And for me to be under the amount of stress, knowingly that you were not performing your job function, is how the negligence of the ransomware attack happened.
You do not know that. You do not know that. And I caution you, I cautioned you on day one, that you do not know the facts. You are drawing conclusions and assumptions that are not based on fact. I will not apologize. The residents put me in this position. I have put my best efforts forward in doing my job performance. I continue to excel at doing my job performance. And I believe if you look at the pattern of behavior issues, you will see a common thread, which begins with Sherry Maddox having issues with first Renee, then Donna Denice, then Darlene, then the clerk, and so on and so forth. Sherry, I will bring every office staff member into this board and have them give an accounting for what is the root cause of the problems in the office. And I can guarantee you that it is not generated from my office. People look to me to make tough decisions, to fix problems all the time. Residents report to me issues of concern on the job performance, both from our treasurer and our clerk. And I am tasked with finding solutions to do that, which I have done, and I have done effectively. I have done it compassionately, and I have not done it confrontationally. Yes, there are many issues, as you can all hear. This is awkward, and this is uncomfortable to have this discussion right now. But if you want to solve the problem, I have given you the opportunity and the method by which to do it. Because in my many conferences with Mark Clark, that is our only option at this point. We can wait things out until November of '22 and see who chooses to run for office. It could be somebody who's running unopposed, could be somebody who's challenging each other, right? If you want the accountability to begin and end here at this board level, that's what we do. If you do not have a desire to do that, I'm not forcing you to. I'm just having the discussion to let you know what's going on and the situation that we have right now.
Well, I appreciate you bringing this to the board, because we need to know what's going on. And could you just ask Sherry the question you asked her? I just wanted to hear her answer about whether she's competent.
I asked.
She never asked the
She
question.
says she threatened. How were you threatened? Just curious. Those are the words come out of your mouth. You were threatened.
You mean like an instance or time?
Situation, verbal, whatever. How were you threatened?
That if I did not perform the function and send that wire, that I would be held liable for not sending the funds to the ransomware, the perpetrators.
It's after we approved it, right?
Right. That's not the
Yeah,
conversation
and-
that we
and
had.
so
there are
again,
circumstances surrounding
Be
that
mindful is
wire.
that I never set up the wire transaction on the bank
So that's
because of if anybody could come into the office and threaten me to send a wire. Because normally what you do is you would go to the bank because you know ample time that a wire needs to be sent.
I just asked. I don't know how you-
And so in a short period of time, in 10 minutes, that,
Mark can give you the accounting of exactly what happened regarding that transfer. We were under the impression, Mark included, in the many phone calls that we've had, that the village was not responsible for wiring that money. At the very last minute, the rules changed. Mark was aware of it. I had less than 10 minutes to negotiate with a bad threat actor under the risk that the price would inflate. So while yes, I was at home at a conference call, and I brought my laptop over and said, I need to have this wire transferred. Never once did I say that if you don't do this, you'll be subject to some sort of, I said, Sherry, can you help me do this wire transfer? And I made sure that Catherine logged in so that she was there, so that she could do the two-person approval process, and we could get that transferred so we were able to get our decryption key back. That's exactly what happened.
I guess, I mean, the stress put on in that instance to do something that's probably hasn't been done in the village of Romeo ever, that I would know of. And to go back, you should have been able to handle it then, right? You should have been able to log in and have your token and your security for that bank account. You should have had that.
It required two people.
Exactly, and you said that Catherine was there,
Two people to
able
do
to
that.
do that.
Right.
So you should have also though,
Jerry was in,
right? I mean, if we're gonna throw blame, you should have also
there's
then been
no
up to
blame.
date with your.
There's no blame.
what you're throwing it.
I found the token in my desk drawer. I could have done that under a 10-minute time frame. Sherry had the ability to log in, do step 1. Catherine had the ability to log in and do step 2.
Clean house, come on, please.
So she's just explaining what happened.
Yeah, I can respect that, but I mean,
No, I don't
it also
think
should have
that,
been, she should have had the ability to do part
And I
of it.
should have had supporting documentation other than
Something.
looking at a screen on a
You
computer.
did see those documents because I showed you.
On
I
a
showed you
computer
those-
with me trying to execute, and it
I showed you the
doesn't,
documents that had all of the action, who, why, where. In fact, I read it to you as you typed it in. We sat side by side
right,
in
because
your
we had to
office.
I had to fill out an application to actually initiate the wire, and the banker was on the
Yeah.
phone, because he said normally, you don't have the ability to set up the application. Usually, there's a 24-hour time frame. But
Yeah.
somehow, it got executed.
Did you do the backups daily?
On my
Like,
computer,
You were saying Mike, the other way out the door, said do the backups daily.
those are daily backups to the server that falls underneath the, I'm not sure
Why
what
did we have to pay
position.
ransomware if we had it all backed up?
I'm not sure, because I've talked to other municipality that didn't pay ransomware, and they had backup.
Isn't that a question for Catherine?
It was his
Yeah, I don't,
responsibilities in the office to-
I do daily backups on my my
Well, if it was
system.
backed up every day, we shouldn't have had to pay ransomware. We should have just went to where it was backed up
Shouldn't have paid ransom.
and downloaded it all. It should have all been there.
Correct, and
It
that's,
either wasn't there or something else
Did
was
they
wrong.
take over the backup
Clean
too?
house.
Yes.
Well, the insurance company made the ransom.
They paid $2,500.
What?
They paid the deductible. The
No.
deductible had to come out first in order to pay the ransom.
The 2,500, the insurance company paid for everything getting reset up, all
That's-
those costs.
that's why it was
So
14,600,
there was
right?
much more, there was like 50,000 coverage.
Yeah, that's the cover.
Right, so
You
the
had to pay the
2,500 was
2,500
not.
first in order
the
to access
25
the 12.
The 2,500 was not part of the ransom.
But you still had to pay the deposit.
The insurance company paid it.
The backup, I mean, who's responsible for the day-to-day operations of the office? Whose job is that?
The clerk's job, but the president moved in. It's not ran like.
So I don't know how we can look at the treasurer for doing server backup.
Clean house.
and my backups are done daily, or they were done daily, on how the computer was set up from the prior.
So again, I say to you
Administration.
that until the forensics are done, you don't understand the problem. The backups were done daily. The backups were done daily.
And were they secured?
That's the question.
Yes.
They were.
They were not
We have a firewall.
removed from the server.
So they weren't
But
secured.
the,
We have a firewall.
the threat actor entered the environment using a employee's password that they got off their desktop. That's how the threat actor got into the system, not because we didn't have a backup, not because we didn't have our data secured. So again, until you understand the facts and you read that documentation, I would not be making assumptions because it's unfair.
Asking questions.
Right.
Asking questions,
Right.
because once again, we're getting information
is that
after the fact.
is that same, is that linked to? I know I got phishing emails from your account. I even texted you at one point asking Christine, are you asking me to do this? Is that,
Several
is that
times.
the same?
No, it is not. That's a separate threat actor that's garnishing names and email addresses from our website. So we're putting procedures into place to sort of limit that exposure. We may have to remove those and just use a generic contact us form. That's how they're generating, because if you look, it has my name, but it's not my email address in the bar. and those that have been faked as well. So they're getting that from the website. IT has determined that. And again, given instructions to Catherine how to prevent that from happening in the future. But it is unrelated.
I just have one question about the scholarship thing and that for the training. Did either you or Catherine talk to somebody who was organizing that, or the lady that she spoke with, Sherry?
I did. I confirmed Sherry's absence from the clerk, from the treasurer's school. There was a caveat that in order to get credit for the entire year of training for the earned advanced, what do I want to say?
Certification.
Yeah, the certification, excuse me. You had to attend every hour, every session of that. And so Sherry no called, no showed on Monday. They reached
I have
out
an
to her
email
on
where I
Tuesday.
emailed her.
They reached to her on Tuesday. She said she was unable to, she was personally and professionally devastated from the ransomware attack, and she was seeking resources to regain access to our bank accounts, which I reiterate, we never lost access to our bank accounts. Never. We lost access to BSNA, to that data. Ms. Listerman is who I spoke to. She is the chairman of the Treasurers Conference, indicated that they would reconsider waiving the scholarship fee, so that scholarship will more than likely not be available next year.
So I would just confirm, there was a medical, she's got documentation from a medical professional. She took a medical leave, she wasn't here, and we're discussing this openly? I don't know why we're
She didn't inform us.
And I was
no
performing
idea
my
what was
job
happening.
function to the best of my
You're
ability,
not
Did she,
under those terms.
for medical purposes?
did she call the offices Monday or
No.
Tuesday to say
No.
this is the situation?
No,
She said
I mean,
no.
if I'm sick and I, at some point, give documentation in previous positions.
Still
yeah.
have no documentation to
Has
that
it-
point.
have you asked?
Right?
Have you
Yes,
requested?
I did.
But she never called in, you just said, right? To explain
Correct.
what's going on?
I was not made aware until
And
last
she was paid for the week, right?
She was.
Wednesday. So there
You
could have
weren't made
been
aware that
perfect
we found out?
opportunity for you to have brought this prior to telling me that
We're
2
talking about a
hours
week medical leave here.
at 12 o'clock, you
I don't
wanted to
even know
have
how
a
to
meeting
read
with me
myself,
and
so
Dan
that's
about my conference, and I had no idea. And I accommodated you so that you could get the board packets ready, because you were going to ask for my resignation or put it into a special meeting. And going back to you, Matt, I did,
ask Treasurer Maddox if she wanted this under public comment, public meeting or in a private meeting, and she said she wanted it done at a public meeting.
and Matt, I did reach out to you as well that week that I was off. I did text you and said that I would like to speak with you, and I know another board member reached out to you as well and indicated that I needed
don't
to
believe
talk to
so.
you. Okay.
But as far as, Sherry, when you weren't there that week, you said that you reported it. You reported it to a trustee?
Mm-hmm.
That was the only, you didn't tell anybody in the office, but you told a trustee?
Correct.
Okay. That wouldn't be normal.
Why wouldn't that trustee contact us? 'Cause-
That was my question, right? If there were some concerns over your health and well-being, because she reported to me at that point, she was contemplating not coming back at all. And
Yes, that's how much emotional stress that I had been under, is that I did contemplate, and I did reach out to several residents in the community that was concerned about my health as well.
we all are concerned about your health. And I indicated in the meeting that we had with Dan, I felt horrible that you would be in that position and under so much stress that your body would shut down. And that I thought it was very imperative that we get you the assistance that you need. Did I not say that at the meeting?
Yes, and that's why I've been proactive, where I posted a part-time seasonal assistant for the succession planning, because I have no intentions of seeking reelection.
With no one, right, which is
So
why I
I'm
bring it up
planning
to you
for my
that
succession
She's
planning.
not interested in running again. Do we want to contemplate making the switch to a hired position so that there is accountability and
Experience.
experienced person doing those job functions?
I think that's an important point.
And like you said, there's 2 villages that are still elected.
I believe so.
I guess with that then, I mean, then don't we have to question the presidency moving forward? Where if you're going to take on so much responsibility, or the president's office is going to take on the responsibility, shouldn't we then look at someone more qualified?
Yeah,
Or
you
someone
can
that
look
is
at a village
qualified?
manager, absolutely. Yep, that's what we talked about years ago, that we thought there was a need to have some consistency in that village office that did not run with an election cycle. So that, again, no matter who was coming and going from this board, from our residents, that they were serviced by people who had the historical knowledge, the expertise, and the data to offer.
And still accountable to the
Yep,
board.
absolutely.
To the elected board.
And the reason that never went through is there were people that were saying they want to take away your vote. Don't let them take away your vote.
Didn't we entertain a manager at one
Yeah,
point?
we did.
And how'd
Yep,
that go?
We did under Marion, right? Well, Marion had, under her administration, or I guess it would have been Paul Reese's administration, but Marion was the clerk then. They had a village manager, apparently ran screaming off in the night and didn't work out for whatever reason, as it was reported back to me. We had that frank discussion when Marion and Minnie announced their retirement. We started doing it. At that point, do we want to consider this?
We're only talking about those 2 positions.
Well, the discussion can be for all 3. I'm not suggesting that it should, I mean, the president still needs to be elected, right? Whether you want to hire a manager to do those duties, by ordinance, you assign those duties to a hired manager, just like you make it a job description for the clerk and the treasurer, or one. You can have one person doing both of those jobs, the clerk and the treasurer. You have one competent person doing both of those jobs. Right, that's how Wolverine Lake does it. I believe in James's report, he'll have all that data.
Well, that would make sense in that I don't see anybody wanting to come in to do a 30,000 job, with expertise that they would have.
No.
So if you combine them, then they could be getting the salary that they would probably deserve. And
But it will take some time in this employment environment that we have. Finding a qualified, competent person who wants to come to Romeo to do this job may take some time, which is why I'm saying you need to have this discussion now.
And you
If you have to have
place
an
before the
ordinance done,
election.
Right.
yeah. You have to set the salary, you have to, I don't know if you're gonna vet it out through a recruiter, if you're just gonna post it on Indeed.com or on the village website, maybe. Then there has to be an interview process. And Sherry, when I asked Sherry for her resignation, I was surprised when she said, well, who's your person? Who do you want to put in here? I said, I don't have a person, right? It's not my person, it's this board. It's the board that's gonna hold them accountable. You have indicated you have some concerns over the effectiveness of the clerk. Again, do you want that to change or not? Do you want to be able to have control over how that office is running? Do you want it open 5 days a week? Then make it open 5 days a week, but you have to have somebody who's in there who's doing the will of this board. And elected officials are not subject to that. That's the inherent problem with the way the general village law is set up. The elected officials are not subject to that.
Well, we've asked several times about the 5 days a week, and it just gets blown off, pushed off to the side. You're also one of those elected officials that gave yourself an increase.
No,
took
I did
insurance.
not.
Yes, you did.
Excuse me, no,
Yes, you
I did not.
The presidential
I did not.
position before
Right.
you,
There
before
was
anyone,
no
never
increase.
had the administrative pay attached to it. Never.
But it's separate.
Never.
There's a president's
Very
salary.
separate.
And that
Yeah,
tells
the
you-
president's salary, which is the
It's not on the law.
President's
175
doing the
plus
administrator rather than
the
assigning.
administrative pay was only in when it was appointed to someone else. The president prior never had that salary.
And didn't do the
Never.
job.
And then also,
Did do
then we add on another
They did a good job.
insurance and benefits on top of that, where the clerk only had that before. So you took the pay and then an additional,
The administrator had it.
The administrator did.
so we're paying it twice then?
No, but
Yeah,
it's
we
based
are.
on salary.
I'm not getting an administrator pay.
Right.
You're not getting the pay, but you're getting benefits,
You get the
medical
benefits.
benefits.
That's because that was
The
approved.
president didn't get that.
That was
before.
approved for the clerk.
When the administrative, yes. It wasn't
There's no
attached to the
administrator. The
administrative.
president's the president.
It wasn't attached to the administrative position. It was the clerk got the benefits.
Well, but
No.
We never paid double benefits when the last administration was in here. The TAD and the previous president didn't take insurance, didn't take benefits. So it's an additional.
I could have opted for the stipend, just like they did. They opted for the stipend. Yes. Yes, they did.
TAD took a stipend.
No, Tad didn't take on the duties of the administrator, which is why he didn't get paid.
There was only a
He
single
didn't do the
position
duties.
in that office,
He
the
chose.
clerk and administrator, only one of them
The administrator
took
works a separate position.
benefits.
He chose to assign his duties to the administrator and appoint somebody through his appointment to do the jobs of the duties of the president. I didn't choose
And then
to do
that's
that.
where the administrative pay came into place. Prior to that going into,
No.
the president didn't get that salary prior to that ordinance going into effect.
The administrator pay was always there at $30,000, Justin.
No, no.
Yes, it was. The
It
previous
was
one.
Was it
adopted in
ordinance in like 80?
2014, no. It was adopted in 2014. So,
I don't know, I think this board would agree that I'm glad Christine's here, because otherwise the problems would be exacerbated. If we didn't have her in the office, everything would be in a different situation.
Might be the main root
I
cause
think
of
you're
the problem.
beating it
I
dead horse.
hear you blowing the smoke, Bob.
Yeah.
You know, it's in chaos,
All right.
complete chaos.
Yep.
And she's bringing it to us. She's making us aware of it.
Now, 3 years
Right.
after?
It's been building, I think.
Yeah.
Well, it started day one. I want everybody to be mindful of that.
To information prior to this.
Oh, hell yeah.
I questioned the clerk years ago.
Maybe we should
And
bring
why-
the office staff.
Why were you not concerned then?
They had a 4-year term.
right.
Yeah, but
The
there's something
same
you can run up
rules
with your remedy.
apply
What
as
is
far
your
as
remedy?
accountability, right? I can no more make you resign from this board for malfeasance or misfeasance of office as I can Catherine or the treasurer or anybody else who's elected to this position. We can ask the governor to recall them, right? The residents can have a recall petition. But other than that, our hands are tied.
With all of them.
With all of us. With all of us.
Whole session.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to solve this tonight.
No, but I wanted the discussion to start, and I wanted some directives on what documentation do you want? Do you want me to get you some more documents? Do you want this included as a special meeting, so that we can discuss it at length later? I don't know what your appetite is.
I would say to the board, I mean, Sherry's saying she's not running again, so now you're held to whoever happens to live in the village and feels like running. It's a Russian roulette. We could get a great person or a not so great person. And if one person runs like this, we're saddled with who we have for 4 years. You don't
And
care for the
that goes
clerk.
for any trustee or president or anyone
They're not
that's
doing the
elected.
same job. We're coming to meetings and voting, and we're representing the people. They're handling the day-to-day operations of the village. It's
That we're supposed to
critical.
be kind of overseeing and looking at and making sure things are going how
And if you
ordinance
don't
and how
like the
things are
people,
planned.
you're saddled with them.
Wasn't that
if
why
they're
we
elected.
just hired
Well,
a bunch of
I mean,
consultants?
Christina's laid it
Hired
out very
consultants?
clearly. I mean,
But Justin, none of us board members are in the office all day to see what happens. So maybe we should bring in other office staff as wits. They see what's going
I had
on.
enough people in that office, spending money like, oh, crazy.
We've got more salary and more consultants in that office than ever, and we're only open 4 days a week. That's alarming.
Twice a week.
What was that?
Did you see we're only open twice a week?
4 days a week. It's alarming.
You-
Okay, so we will move on.
Motion to go to closed session?
We have item I, ordinance notification discussion.
I wanted to discuss, I had an officer come to my house and notify me that I had violated an ordinance. Okay, what ordinance have I violated? They didn't know. They were just told to come tell me that. Okay, what is the process? Well, you have to fix it. Okay, what's my time frame? You have 2 weeks. Okay, what happens if I don't get it done in 2 weeks? Well, then this happens, and then what happens after that? So
what was
They
the
were-
violation?
I couldn't even tell you, Bob. I've yet to be notified,
You have
but I
2
had
weeks
2 weeks to fix it.
Something.
An officer came and said he didn't know what the violation was?
Well, he or she.
So my problem is this how every resident is treated? That we send our officer with no notification of what our residents' rights are or the process? For me, friendly with the officers, I know the officers, so I wasn't very, how should I say, it didn't scare me. But if I was somebody else who never had an officer at my door, I might not have remembered what our conversation was. A piece of paper saying, this is the process, these are your rights, here are the phone numbers to call, because at the end of our conversation, where we eventually got was, call the front offices. Well, then I had to look up numbers and do everything. We need a better process of notifying our residents of not only what their rights are and what the due process is, but we need to also notify them of what ordinance they violated.
That's number one.
There was couldn't give me a number, couldn't give me a number of what ordinance I violated,
Essentially the crime and.
told me to call the office. So I called the front office. Front office had no clue, call the police. Call the police. They didn't know, but obviously that officer was notified to come to my door. I called and left a voicemail with the clerk. The clerk text messages me back. Basically, I don't know what you're talking about. So
Is this an
there
isolated
was,
incident? I mean, what?
where was, I don't know what the communication is, but if this is how we send our officers to people's doors, we need to let them be prepared.
If somebody calls and complains about an ordinance violation or what is a perceived ordinance violation, to the front office, they turn around and they give it to us. In your case, you know what we're talking about. The officer came out, he spoke to you just like you would everybody else, and they do everybody else. And there was a violation, and he told you it needed to be done. We didn't come over and write you a ticket. We don't just walk out and write people tickets. We tell them what the ordinance violation is, ask them to correct the problem. They correct it, it's all done and good. You corrected your problem.
Absolutely.
It's all done and good.
But here's the problem is, 2 weeks later, you come to me and say, it's not fixed. Well, what's not fixed? Prove that you were ever at my door and that I was notified. Our people need more than just, we need to be giving them something, at least the ordinance that they're violating, and at least what the due process is. He told me that there was an issue, but he couldn't tell me that I was actually violating an ordinance. He couldn't point to an ordinance.
You had construction equipment parked on your driveway for over a year.
No, it wasn't.
You told them it was over a year.
No.
And you can't have that.
So I guess it's not this individual instance.
I'm not
you're
talking
questioning,
about
it's the
myself. I'm
process
saying in general.
And maybe a little bit more clarification.
With a copy of the ordinance, and we hand it to them. So here's the ordinance, you need to come within these parameters.
So you do that.
And we give them an opportunity to fix it.
Okay,
If
so
they do,
I guess the
done.
situation was that didn't happen.
He didn't
if I
have
heard
the
correctly.
ordinance, apparently. But he talked to her about it. He told her what the violation was. She's making it sound like he knocked on the door and said, somebody called and said something's wrong. I don't know what it is, but fix it, then walked away, and that's not what happened.
Well, I'm sorry if that's what it was portrayed.
That's kind of what it sounded like, that's not what happened.
That's exactly what it sounded like, but
That's not what I intended. When you can't tell, when I say, okay, what is the ordinance? What am I violating? And you go, not quite sure. You'll have to call the office. Well, then I'm really not violating anything until you can point to it and prove to me that I am. Just because you come to my door and say that I am, I'm just supposed to go, oh, well, the officer said so.
So you'll
When the
just-
front office
I guess
didn't
this is
know,
not
the
like a
police
personal
didn't.
attack. This is more moving forward, like, if we had a form or something saying, hey, this is what you're in violation of, this is what you got to do, or call this number, you've got X amount of days.
I know Officer Bowers specifically takes out the ordinance with him.
And that's what I'm asking, is if that's how we, if my instance was isolated and rare, because anybody else, that would be scary for them. They wouldn't know what to do or where to go. I just want to make sure that this isn't how we
Maybe
do
because you knew
things.
them, they thought they could just tell you, hey, you got to fix this and take care of it, and, you know, treated you with a little consideration.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, we do that with everybody.
Gotcha.
It's like, we don't go pounding on board and say, you know, cut your grass, or we're coming back. We don't drive around looking for grass that hasn't been cut. It comes to us.
I think you guys do a fine job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm sorry that you didn't get a copy of the ordinance. I will get you one if you need it, but the problem's already been.
I just want to make sure that that is how it was handled with me, isn't how it's done with our residents, because they deserve to know what's going
It's
on.
not. Officer Solier will be instructed to make sure he carries the ordinance with him every time he goes. Because Officer Bauer does, I know that.
Awesome, thank you.
Do you want a motion to go into closed session?
I do need a motion
I'll
to
make
go
a
into
motion to
closed
go into
session.
closed session.
Support.
Purpose of receiving legal opinion regarding cannabis ballot petition.
Thank you.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Hart,
Yes.
Bartholomew,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
President Milzwan,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Poznanski.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. We enter in 8:45.
Yes, 8:45. We'll be back. Thank you, everybody. All right, so we're back from closed session. It is 9:45. We have a bit of discussion regarding ordinance, the restated and amended marijuana business ordinance 556-1 is our remaining unfinished business item. As discussed in closed session. Mark, did you want to reaffirm your
Sure.
advice?
Yep, you had adopted an ordinance allowing for certain marijuana establishments in the village, limited to the industrially zoned area, that allowed for growers, processors, transporters, and safety inspectors. And because of some deficiencies in that ordinance, it was, by your board action, repealed in April of this year, April of 2021. You had initially, going back before that, opted out of any type of recreational marijuana establishments in the village, which the law permitted. In fact, if you wanted to opt out, you had to do that affirmatively, which you did. Then you adopted an ordinance that allowed for marijuana establishments, and because of the deficiencies in April, you repealed that and reaffirmed your opt-out of any marijuana establishments in the village. The statutes governing marijuana, particularly recreational, in municipalities allow for what is called an initiative process, whereby if there's a petition circulated, a sufficient number of signatures are garnered, and as provided in the statute, to place a proposed ordinance on a ballot, then the voters would decide what the use of marijuana, growing, processing, safety checks would be, transporting would be in the village. So to try to, if you will, start over from square one, my recommendation is that you do similarly what you did in April, and that is repeal the ordinance you passed in May. I think it's 556-1, allowing for certain marijuana establishments in the village. Repeal that ordinance and reaffirm your opt-out. That puts you back to where you were before you adopted any ordinance governing marijuana establishments, and will allow you, if you choose, to pass an ordinance of your own that contains provisions that that is supported by at least 4 people on the board, or it would also allow the initiative process, which can happen anyway. If somebody chooses to circulate a petition putting forth a particular type of an ordinance allowing for marijuana establishments, they can do that really no matter what you do here. You cannot stop that. The initiative process is available. My recommendation to allow you to essentially address this in a fresh manner is repeal the ordinance you adopted in May reaffirm your opt-out of marijuana establishments in the village, and then you can decide whether to proceed with a revised or different ordinance, or do nothing and allow, or wait and see if the initiative process proceeds. That's my recommendation. You don't have to certainly accept that. You can do nothing. You have an ordinance in place, warts and all. You can leave that in place. You do not have to take any action. You are legally positioned where you are right now. It's a question of, do you like the position you're in? And if you do nothing. If you don't like the position, then you can take the recommendation I'm making.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to repeal our ordinance 556-1 and reaffirm our ordinance 521.
We have a motion by Hart. Do you support?
Support?
Support by Bartholomew. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that ordinance is appealed. I'd like to make a motion that we add this agenda item for our special meeting scheduled for next Monday, the 28th, for further discussion on next steps.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So we will add it there. I'd also would just like to clarify if you would like me to invite any interested parties to give presentations, or are you not entertaining presentations at this time?
I'd be open to presentations.
We can limit them to, say, a 5-minute window, right? We don't have to spend 2 hours here, right? But I can reach out to those that have expressed interest and say, you can come and give us a 5-minute presentation for consideration of what we're going to change in the ordinance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Is there anybody opposed to that? Okay, so then I will reach that up. Okay,
Motion to
Zach? Motion to adjourn, support by, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, meeting adjourned.